Chapter 1. The Shy Declaration. The void beyond the panoramic viewport of the Odyssey was a tapestry of stars and swirling nebulae, a cosmic canvas that stretched infinitely in every direction. The vastness of space was humbling, yet strangely comforting to those who had grown accustomed to its cold embrace. Cale stood at the helm, his lean frame silhouetted against the glow of countless distant suns. His fingers traced the contours of the console's controls almost absent-mindedly as he gazed out into the dark ocean of the galaxy, feeling the silent pulse of the stars whispering their secrets in frequencies only the attuned could almost hear. The hum of the ship's engines beneath his feet was a steady rhythm, a heartbeat of metal and plasma that tethered him to this fragile vessel as it sliced through the emptiness. In this moment, the familiar solitude felt like a cocoon, a quiet bubble of peace in a universe that was anything but predictable. Cale had spent years drifting between star systems, mapping forgotten routes, cataloging unknown worlds, and sometimes just sitting in silence, letting the vastness of space wash away the chaos of past conflicts and regrets. The galaxy was a place of unending mystery, and while Cale's life had been shaped by the quest for knowledge and survival, it was also marked by a profound loneliness, a yearning for connection amidst the cold stars. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a hesitant, breathy voice just behind him, barely above the hum of the engines, but sharp enough to catch his attention. "I'm practically an adult, human." The words stumbled out in a flurry, laced with the awkward confidence of youth and a hint of stubborn defiance. Cale turned slowly, his eyebrows arching in amused surprise as he met the gaze of the speaker. There stood Zira, a lithe figure barely brushing the threshold of adulthood by her race's standards, her violet eyes large and shimmering with a blend of determination and shy vulnerability. Her skin was a delicate shade of lavender, mottled faintly with iridescent freckles that glimmered like stardust when caught by the ambient lighting. The traditional Vanyari battle garb she wore, though tailored to her smaller frame, bore the intricate sigils of her warrior lineage, a visual testament to the pride and legacy she carried despite her youth. Zira's stance was awkward but resolute, one hand clenched at her side, while the other nervously twisted the edge of her tunic. Her long, silvery hair cascaded over her shoulders in loose waves, framing a face that still bore the softness of adolescence. The weight of unspoken expectations hung heavily around her, an invisible armor more daunting than any crafted from steel or energy fields. The Vanyari were a proud people, known across several star systems for their unyielding warrior code, their history steeped in ancient battles and rituals that defined their identity. To be accepted as an adult among them was a right that demanded proof of strength, wisdom, and unwavering courage, qualities that Zira was still learning to embody. Her arrival aboard the Odyssey was itself a defiance of her elders, a bold step that challenged both tradition and the skepticism of those who doubted the capabilities of humans and their crews. Cale's lips curled into a gentle smile, warmth radiating from his voice as he replied, "I believe you, Zira. You've got spirit." His tone was steady, infused with a kindness born from countless encounters with beings struggling to prove themselves in an often harsh universe. But being practically an adult means more than words. It's about what you're willing to do when it counts, what you'll stand for when the stars grow cold and the darkness tries to swallow the light. Zira's eyes flickered with a mixture of admiration and challenge, her shyness momentarily replaced by the fierce fire that coursed through her veins. "I'm not afraid to stand," she whispered, voice barely above a murmur, but carrying the weight of her conviction. "I want to prove I'm worthy not just to my people, but to myself." The bridge around them was alive with activity, the low chatter of crew members exchanging data, running system checks, and monitoring sensor feeds. Yet in this small bubble, their exchange felt like an island of quiet resolve. Cale could sense the fragile courage beneath Zira's words, the desperate desire to be seen not as a child, but as a warrior in the making. He stepped closer, his gaze steady and unyielding. "Then show me," he said simply. "Show us all. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember, strength is not just in muscle or weaponry, but in heart and mind, in the choices we make when no one is watching." Zira nodded, swallowing hard as a blush crept across her cheeks. The walls she had built around her insecurities felt like they might crack, not from weakness, but from the unexpected kindness of this human who saw her for more than just a kid from a warrior race. There was no ridicule, no condescension, only an invitation to rise. Over the following days, Zira proved herself in ways both small and profound. The Odyssey was a vessel tasked with exploration and diplomacy as much as defense, and every member of the crew played a part. Zira's agility and quick thinking during a simulated combat drill caught the attention of seasoned officers, her sharp mind unearthing nuances in alien languages that had eluded translators, and her relentless curiosity often led to breakthroughs in understanding unfamiliar cultures. Yet beneath these accomplishments lay the unspoken pressures of youth. At night, when the stars seemed to whisper their ancient songs, Zira would retreat to the quieter corridors, her thoughts drifting back to home, the unforgiving mountains of Vanyari Prime, the piercing gaze of her mother, the expectations etched in every glance. She was caught between worlds, the fierce traditions of her people and the unpredictable, ever-changing path of the human-led crew she now sailed with. Kale noticed the moments when her bravado faltered, the fleeting shadows behind her violet eyes. One evening, as they stood side by side overlooking a shimmering nebula, he ventured gently, "You carry a lot with you, don't you?" Zira's laugh was soft, tinged with irony. "Too much for someone who's practically an adult, isn't it?" She exhaled slowly, the weight of her confession heavy in the stillness. "I want to be strong. I want to prove I belong. But sometimes I wonder if that's enough." He didn't answer immediately, letting the silence stretch between them, thick with unspoken understanding. "Belonging isn't about proving yourself to others," he finally said. "It's about knowing who you are even when the universe seems determined to tell you otherwise." Her gaze met his, the vulnerability of a child mingling with the fierce heart of a warrior. In that shared moment, across species and star systems, a fragile bond was forged, a promise of trust and understanding that would be tested by the trials to come. As the Odyssey charted its course deeper into the unknown, both Kale and Zira sensed that their journey was more than a mere mission of exploration. It was a voyage of transformation, of discovery, not just of distant worlds, but of themselves and the ties that could bind the most unlikely allies across the galaxy. And so, beneath the silent watch of countless stars, the shy alien teen who blurted out, "I'm practically an adult, human," began a journey that would change her destiny and the fate of those she vowed to protect. "I'm practically an adult, human," alien teen blurted out shyly, only to return years later. The following days on the Odyssey blurred into a whirlwind of activity and quiet moments, each etched with the slow, steady forging of bonds that transcended star systems and species. Zira's presence aboard the ship was a constant reminder of the fragile cusp between childhood and adulthood, a tension that echoed in the way she carried herself, part fierce warrior in training, part hesitant teenager still searching for her place in a vast and sometimes merciless universe. The bridge was a hive of coordinated energy. Crew members bustled between consoles, analyzing sensor data, adjusting navigation parameters, and running simulations designed to prepare them for any encounter beyond the familiar borders of explored space. Kale, often immersed in the logistical chaos, found himself increasingly aware of Zira's quiet determination to prove her worth. It wasn't just her skills that impressed the crew, it was the intangible quality of her spirit, that raw, untamed spark that seemed to ignite when the stakes grew highest. The Vanyari tradition valued strength and honor above all else, yet Zira's approach to these ideals was nuanced, tempered by the fresh perspectives gleaned from traveling alongside humans and other species. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling training exercise, the Odyssey's commander, a grizzled veteran named Arlen, watched Zira navigate the simulated combat zone with a blend of precision and improvisation. Her movements were fluid, her decisions sharp, but what caught Arlen's attention was the way she adapted to the unexpected, a trait not often seen in those so young. "Impressive," he murmured to Kale, who was observing from a nearby console. "She's got the makings of a true warrior, not just muscle and reflexes, but instinct and heart." Kale nodded, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "She's also carrying a lot more than most of us realize." He glanced over at Zira, who was wiping sweat from her brow, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. As the day gave way to evening, the ship's corridors transformed from functional spaces to more personal ones. Crew members dispersed to their quarters, some gathering in communal areas for meals and conversation, others retreating to the solitude of their cabins. Zira's footsteps echoed softly as she made her way to the observation deck, a quiet sanctuary where she could lose herself in the stars. Kale followed, sensing her need for quiet companionship rather than solitude. He arrived moments later, standing beside her as they both stared out at the swirling galaxy beyond the reinforced glass. The nebula stretched before them like a living painting, violet hues bleeding into electric blues and fiery oranges, clouds of gas and dust illuminated by the light of newborn stars. It was breathtaking, a reminder of the beauty and danger inherent in their voyage. Zira broke the silence, her voice barely a whisper. Back home, the mountains feel smaller than this, but they carried all my fears and hopes. Here, everything is bigger and so much harder. Kale's gaze shifted from the stars to her face, illuminated by the soft glow of the nebula. The galaxy is vast, yes, but it's not just the size that's overwhelming, it's the weight of choice, the uncertainty of what's to come. She nodded, biting her lip. I feel like I'm expected to carry the weight of my entire race on my shoulders. To be strong, to never show doubt. But sometimes, I just want to be a kid again. Or at least pretend. The confession hung between them, fragile and raw. Kale's hand moved almost involuntarily, reaching out to brush a stray lock of silver hair from her face. You don't have to carry it alone, Zira. Strength isn't just about bearing burdens silently, it's about knowing when to share them. Her violet eyes met his, shimmering with unshed tears and something deeper, a fierce hope that perhaps, in this human, she had found an ally who saw beyond the armor, beyond the titles and expectations. Days turned into weeks, and the Odyssey's journey into uncharted space continued. Zira's transformation was subtle but undeniable. Her steps grew surer, her voice steadier, and her laughter rare and precious echoed through the ship's halls. She became more than the shy alien teen who had blurted out her claim to adulthood. She was a symbol of resilience, of growth forged in the crucible of space and companionship. But the galaxy was indifferent to personal journeys. Shadows gathered on the horizon, whispers of conflict, ancient grudges resurfacing, and mysteries lurking in the dark pockets between stars. Zira and Kale would soon learn that proving oneself was not just a matter of skill or courage, but of heart and sacrifice. And sometimes, the greatest battles were fought not with weapons, but with trust. As the Odyssey pressed onward, their fates intertwined in ways neither could yet imagine, setting the stage for a story of courage, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds that transcend worlds. Chapter 2: Shadows over the Horizon. The Odyssey had become more than a ship to its crew. It was a vessel of hope, a symbol of unity across the fractured expanse of the galaxy. Under the steady command of Captain Arlen, and guided by the unwavering spirit of its crew, the ship cut through the darkness like a silver arrow aimed at the unknown. For Zira, each day aboard was a relentless test, a labyrinth of challenges that demanded more than just physical prowess. She was learning the nuances of diplomacy, the fragile art of alliance building, and the quiet strength required to lead without intimidation. The journey had become a crucible that reshaped her identity, molding the alien teenager who had once been shy and uncertain into something more formidable, though the echoes of vulnerability still lingered beneath her growing armor. The stars outside the Odyssey shimmered with indifferent brilliance, unaware of the lives entwined within this fragile vessel. For all its advanced technology and the camaraderie aboard, the galaxy was an unpredictable entity, ancient, vast, and often merciless. The crew had recently intercepted signals hinting at disturbances in a region known as the Viridian Expanse, a sector long shrouded in mystery and home to relics of civilizations lost to time. Rumors of hostile factions, strange energy fluctuations, and uncharted phenomena sent ripples of concern through the interstellar community, and the Odyssey had been dispatched to investigate and, if possible, mediate. The weight of this mission pressed heavily on everyone, but especially on Zira, who felt the silent gaze of her people's expectations tightening around her like a noose. Kale observed her carefully, recognizing the familiar tension in her posture when the gravity of their task settled upon her. In quiet moments, away from the cacophony of duty and discipline, they had developed a language of unspoken support, small gestures, and fleeting looks that bridged the gap between human and Vanyari. Kale himself was no stranger to the burdens of expectation. As a human raised in the shadow of wars and lost legacies, he understood the ache of carrying more than one's own story. Together, they navigated the treacherous waters of interspecies trust, learning that strength was as much about empathy and resilience as it was about weapons and strategy. The Viridian expanse loomed ahead like a dark wound in the fabric of space. Sensor readings revealed chaotic bursts of radiation and distortions that defied the laws of physics known to their scientists. Strange vessels had been sighted, craft with designs that echoed ancient architectures but pulsed with a dangerous vitality. No ambassador had yet succeeded in brokering peace with the factions claiming these nebulous territories. The Odyssey's mandate was clear but daunting: explore, understand, and prevent escalation. The crew braced themselves for the unknown, their training and instincts on high alert. One evening, as the ship cruised silently toward the expanse's outer rim, Zira found herself once again on the observation deck, staring out at the swirling clouds of cosmic dust that painted the darkness with hues of purple and emerald. The nebulae seemed alive, shifting with an eerie grace that stirred something primal within her, a reminder of the wild, untamed forces that shaped her homeworld. Her thoughts drifted to the Vanyari elders, their stern faces etched with both pride and disappointment when she had left. She had defied them to join the humans, to step beyond the rigid confines of tradition and forge a new path. Yet doubt gnawed at her in these solitary moments. Was she betraying her heritage, or was she fulfilling a destiny greater than any ancient rite? Kale approached quietly, his footsteps soft on the polished floor. He did not interrupt immediately, sensing the storm behind her steady gaze. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and measured. The galaxy doesn't care about our fears, only what we do despite them. Zira sighed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. I know, she replied, but sometimes the weight of my own people's expectations feels heavier than the void outside. Her fingers traced idle patterns on the cool glass, as if trying to grasp something intangible. Back home, strength is measured by conquest and honor. Here, it feels like I'm learning a different language, one spoken in patience, trust, and compromise. Kale nodded thoughtfully. Compromise is hard, especially when the stakes are survival. But it's also the seed of peace. Maybe that's the strength your people need to see, not just the warrior, but the diplomat. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert. The ship's sensors had picked up an unknown vessel emerging from a nearby nebula, its design angular and alien, radiating an ominous energy signature. The bridge sprang to life as the crew scrambled to assess the potential threat. Zira's heart quickened, the familiar adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was the moment to prove herself not just as a fighter, but as a leader. Captain Arlen's voice cut through the tension, calm yet commanding. All hands, prepare for contact. Zira, you're with me on comms. Kale, coordinate sensor analysis and shields. The mysterious vessel hailed them moments later, its message garbled but unmistakably a challenge. The Odyssey's crew worked swiftly to decode the transmission, revealing a warning: leave the expanse or face annihilation. Negotiations began under the pressure of looming conflict. Zira stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight on her shoulders. She spoke not as a defiant adolescent, but as a representative of a fragile alliance, offering dialogue over destruction. The hours that followed tested every lesson she had learned from the silent strength in listening to the courage in admitting uncertainty. In the end, it was not a battle of weapons, but of wills. The alien faction revealed itself to be survivors of an ancient empire, distrustful and scarred by centuries of betrayal. Through patience and empathy, Zira bridged the gap, opening channels for dialogue that promised cautious hope. As the Odyssey continued its journey deeper into the mysteries of the Viridian expanse, Zira felt a quiet transformation solidify within her. The shy alien teen who once blurted out her adulthood was becoming a force not because of the battles she fought, but because of the bridges she built, a testament to the power of growth, understanding, and the unyielding courage to face the shadows over the horizon. Chapter 3: The Return and Reckoning. The years that followed the Odyssey's tense encounter at the edge of the Viridian Expanse became a period of relentless trials and transformation for both Zira and Kale, whose paths, though deeply intertwined, would soon face the ultimate test. The galaxy, with all its vastness and mystery, had begun to reveal new layers of complexity, fractured alliances, ancient secrets, and the simmering threat of war that could engulf entire star systems. For Zira, the shy teenager who once nervously claimed adulthood aboard a human vessel, the passage of time had been a crucible that forged her into a leader of remarkable strength and quiet wisdom, yet it had also carved deeper shadows into her soul. When she first stepped onto the Odyssey, Zira was burdened not only by the expectations of her proud Vanyari lineage, but by her own insecurities. The struggle to reconcile the fierce warrior heritage with the unfamiliar demands of interspecies diplomacy weighed heavily. She had learned that true strength was not measured solely in the heat of battle, but in restraint, in the courage to build bridges where others sought to burn them. Years spent navigating treacherous negotiations, mediating disputes between rival factions, and enduring the suspicion of those who doubted a young alien girl's place among hardened commanders had honed her mind and spirit. Yet, beneath the calm exterior she cultivated, memories of that nervous declaration "I'm practically an adult, human," still flickered like distant stars, reminders of a younger self learning to find her voice. Kale, too, had grown, shaped by their shared journeys and the weight of galactic events unfolding around them. His quiet steadiness had become an anchor for many, humans and aliens alike, a testament to the resilience born of hardship and hope. Together, they had weathered storms literal and metaphorical that tested the limits of their endurance and their belief in each other. Their bond, forged in moments of vulnerability and strength, was a rare beacon of trust in a universe too often defined by suspicion and betrayal. But peace was an elusive dream. Reports of unrest in the Outer Rim worlds had escalated into full-scale skirmishes. The fragile alliances painstakingly constructed were unraveling, pulled apart by ancient rivalries and new ambitions. It was during this tumultuous time that Zira received the summons from her people, a call to return home to Vanyari Prime, the mountain world that had shaped her childhood and forged her identity. The decision to leave the Odyssey and Kale was agonizing. She had come to see the ship not just as a vessel, but as a family, a crucible of shared purpose and survival. Yet, the call of her people was undeniable. The Vanyari were facing an unprecedented threat, a coalition of rebel clans seeking to overthrow the traditional council, plunging their world into chaos. As one of the few who had ventured beyond the stars and returned with knowledge and alliances, Zira was both a beacon of hope and a target of suspicion. Her absence had been met with mixed feelings, pride in her accomplishments, but also doubt about her allegiance and whether she had abandoned the warrior code that defined them. Her return was not triumphant. The towering citadels of Vanyari Prime, carved into the craggy mountains like colossal monuments to endurance, seemed colder and more imposing than she remembered. The air was thinner here, tinged with the metallic scent of ancient weaponry and the unyielding presence of tradition. Elders and generals greeted her with wary eyes, their voices laced with cautious respect, but also veiled criticism. "You speak of peace and diplomacy," intoned High Chieftain Soren, his voice as rough as the stone walls surrounding them. "But our enemies do not bargain, they conquer. Your path is soft, alien-touched. Will you stand with us or against us?" Zira met his gaze without flinching, the years of experience lending weight to her words. "I stand for Vanyari survival, not for blind war. Strength without purpose is destruction. We must unify, not fracture further." The council's debates were fierce, a storm of voices demanding allegiance, honor, and sometimes vengeance. Zira found herself caught in the crossfire of politics and power plays, where old wounds festered and new alliances were fragile at best. She struggled to bridge the widening gap between her hard-won beliefs and the rigid dogma of those who saw her as both savior and traitor. Meanwhile, Kale's world shifted without her. The Odyssey continued its mission, yet the absence of Zira left a palpable void, a missing thread in the fabric of their unity. Communications were sporadic, each message from Vanyari Prime carrying the weight of tension and uncertainty. Kale grappled with the distance, the fear that their worlds might drift irreparably apart, even as the galaxy darkened around them. Then came the day that changed everything. A devastating assault by the rebel coalition shattered the peace Zira had fought to preserve. The mountain fortresses trembled under relentless bombardment. The ancient halls echoed with the cries of the fallen and the clash of steel. Zira, rallying loyalists and civilians alike, fought not just for survival, but for the soul of her people. Her leadership was fierce and unyielding, but the cost was staggering. In the darkest hour, as the rebel forces closed in, a signal crackled across the void. The Odyssey was en route, carrying reinforcements and hope. Kale, commanding the fleet's vanguard, prepared for a battle that would test the limits of their alliance and the strength of their bond. The skies over Vanyari Prime became a theater of fire and light, where ancient warriors and modern technology collided in a desperate dance. Zira fought with the heart of 100 generations, her voice rising above the chaos, calling her people to stand. Kale, coordinating from his flagship, pushed his crews beyond exhaustion, knowing that failure meant the extinction of a culture and the loss of a friend. Amidst the tumult, Zira and Kale found each other amid shattered ruins and smoldering ash. Their reunion was bittersweet, a testament to endurance and the scars of war. Words were few, but their eyes spoke volumes of loss, hope, and the unbreakable ties forged in the crucible of shared sacrifice. In the aftermath, as the fires died and the survivors began to rebuild, Zira stood beside Kale, no longer the shy alien teen, but a leader tempered by loss and triumph. Their journey was far from over, but together they faced a future shaped by the choices they had made, the bonds they had forged, and the hope that, even in the darkest of galaxies, light could still be found. Chapter 4: Beyond Shadows, A New Dawn. The aftermath of the conflict on Vanyari Prime was a crucible that tempered the very soul of its people, reshaping their destiny in ways none could have foreseen. The fires of war had left scars etched deep into the ancient mountains and the hearts of survivors alike. But from this crucible emerged a fragile, flickering hope, a chance for rebirth amid ruins. Zira, once the shy alien teenager who had shyly declared her adulthood to a human stranger, had become a symbol of resilience and transformation. Her journey from uncertain youth to hardened leader was a testament not just to her own strength, but to the enduring power of trust and alliance in a galaxy too often torn by fear and misunderstanding. Kale stood beside her on the observation deck of the rebuilt Odyssey, their ship now a beacon of cooperation and shared purpose between humans and Vanyari alike. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched infinitely, a cosmic promise of possibilities beyond the dark chapters of their past. Together, they surveyed the galaxy that was still vast, still dangerous, but increasingly filled with the potential born from their shared sacrifices. The rebuilding of Vanyari society was a monumental task. Ancient traditions clashed with the urgent demands of a new era. The elders, once rigid in their ways, now found themselves challenged not only by external threats, but by the fierce will of a younger generation demanding change. Zira navigated this turbulent landscape with a grace born of experience, her voice a bridge between past and future. She championed reforms that honored the warrior code while embracing diplomacy, technology, and cooperation as tools of survival and growth. Her vision was bold, a Vanyari people strong not only in battle but in unity, capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with allies across the stars. Yet, the path was far from smooth. Factions within the Vanyari resisted change, their fears fueled by memories of betrayal and loss. Rumors of dissent and sabotage threatened the fragile peace. Zira's leadership was tested continually as she sought to balance justice with mercy, tradition with progress. Kale, ever her steadfast partner, lent his wisdom and humanity to these struggles, understanding that true leadership required not dominance, but empathy. Together, They orchestrated a new alliance and interstellar council where diverse voices could be heard, where ancient rivalries were set aside for the greater good. This council was not perfect, nor was it universally accepted, but it was a beginning. Their efforts sowed the seeds of a new era, one where the galaxy's many species might learn to coexist beyond fear and suspicion. Amid these grand endeavors, Zira and Kale's bond deepened, evolving into a partnership that transcended mere friendship or alliance. They were comrades in every sense, warriors, diplomats, and visionaries united by shared purpose and profound respect. Their quiet moments together, watching nebulas swirl in cosmic dance, sharing stories of home and hope, were precious sanctuaries amid the storm of rebuilding. But the galaxy, vast and unyielding, held new mysteries and challenges beyond even their reckoning. As they turned their eyes toward the horizon, unknown forces stirred, ancient technologies awakening, forgotten enemies watching from the shadows, and new threats that demanded all the courage and unity they could muster. The story of Zira and Kale was not an ending, but a continuing journey, one of hope, of struggle, and of the indomitable spirit that defines all who dare to dream beyond the stars. The shy alien teen who once whispered, "I'm practically an adult, human," had returned not just as a warrior, but as a beacon, proof that even in the darkest reaches of the cosmos, growth, redemption, and new beginnings are always possible. Together, they would face whatever the future held, their destinies forever intertwined in the vast, beautiful tapestry of the galaxy. The dust had barely settled over Vanyari Prime, yet the echoes of war reverberated in every corner of the mountain cities and every whispered conversation in the shadowed halls of the council chambers. The scars were not only in stone and metal, but carved deep into the collective consciousness of a people forced to confront the fragility of their legacy. Zira, once the uncertain alien teen whose defiant declaration had seemed so small against the infinite galaxy, now stood at the forefront of a daunting rebirth. Her journey, marked by hardship and sacrifice, had transformed her into a leader whose vision transcended the narrow confines of tradition and the hunger for vengeance. With Kale at her side, the weight of rebuilding was immense, but shared. Together, they traversed the complex web of politics and culture, pushing for a future where strength was measured not by conquest alone, but by the ability to forge bonds of trust across the divides that had long torn the galaxy apart. Their alliance was fragile, constantly threatened by old wounds reopened and new fears born. Yet it endured because it was rooted in more than convenience. It was anchored in mutual respect and an unspoken understanding of the cost of division. The new council, a mosaic of voices from myriad worlds, convened under the vast domes of Vanyari Prime's capital. Zira's voice rang clear and steady in those chambers, a call to unity that echoed beyond the marble halls and into the hearts of millions. She spoke not only for her people, but for the countless others who sought peace amid chaos. Her proposals were bold: shared defense pacts, open trade routes, cultural exchanges, and education programs designed to break the cycle of fear and prejudice that had fueled so many conflicts. Yet, resistance simmered beneath the surface. Factions loyal to the old ways, distrustful of outsiders, and fearful of change, plotted quietly. Rumors of conspiracies and sabotage reached Zira's ears like poisonous whispers. The rebellion had been crushed, but its embers still glowed in secret. She knew that the greatest battles were rarely fought in open fields, but in the minds and hearts of those unwilling to embrace a new dawn. Kale, seasoned by years of navigating the treacherous currents of interstellar politics, became Zira's advisor and confidant. His calm presence was a balm to the often turbulent tides of council debates. Together, they strategized, balancing firmness with diplomacy, and always remembering the fragile lives at stake. Their bond deepened beyond comradeship into something rare and profound, a partnership forged in shared dreams and tempered by the fires of conflict. Outside the council chambers, the people of Vanyari Prime began to heal. Cities once ravaged by war saw reconstruction efforts bloom like wildflowers in spring. New schools opened, where children of different species learned side by side, their laughter a testament to hope reborn. Markets thrived with goods from distant stars, and festivals celebrating unity replaced the grim commemorations of loss. The warrior songs of old were joined by new anthems of peace, and Zira often found herself listening in quiet moments, touched by the resilience of her people. Yet, the galaxy beyond their world was changing. Reports came in of strange phenomena, ancient relics activating, mysterious disappearances, and a growing shadow that neither technology nor diplomacy could easily counter. The Council's newfound unity was tested by threats that transcended politics and history. Zira and Kale stood ready, knowing that their journey was far from over. On the eve of a critical council summit, Zira found herself once more on the observation deck of the Odyssey. The stars stretched before her like silent witnesses to the countless battles and choices that had shaped her path. Beside her, Kale watched the cosmic dance, their silence comfortable and deep. "I never imagined this journey would lead here," Zira murmured, eyes tracing constellations she had learned to name and love. Kale smiled softly. "Neither did I. But perhaps that's the nature of the stars, unpredictable, vast, and full of promise." She turned to him, a faint smile touching her lips. "You believed in me when I was just a shy teen, insisting I was practically an adult. You never doubted." "I never will," he replied. "Because you're more than that. You're a leader, a symbol, and a friend. And the galaxy needs people like you." Their hands found each other's in a gesture both simple and profound, a silent vow that whatever darkness came, they would face it together. As the summit began the next day, representatives from countless worlds gathered, their voices rising in debate, but their hearts cautiously hopeful. Zira spoke with the authority of experience and the fire of conviction, laying out a vision for a galaxy where differences were strengths and unity was the ultimate weapon against chaos. The path ahead was uncertain, the challenges immense. But in that moment, amid the echoes of war and the dawn of peace, the shy alien teen's journey reached a new height, a testament to growth, resilience, and the enduring power of trust. The story of Zira and Kale was a beginning, not an end. Their lives, intertwined across species and stars, embodied the promise that even in the darkest corners of the cosmos, light could be found and nurtured. And so, beneath the endless canopy of stars, their saga continued, a beacon of hope shining brightly, guiding the galaxy toward a future shaped by courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that transcend worlds.